This is an SM Media production.
Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of SM Media's Road to Cheltenham 2023. I'm Scott McPike. It's an absolute pleasure to be your host as always. Delighted as always to be joined by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Calum McClurkin. Calum, how are we?
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, thanks. I'm enjoying this current week of the sport bonanza of the World Cup. We're recording this during Switzerland, Cameroon. It's been a bit of a busy week without having to do very much. We're entertained constantly, aren't we?
Yeah, World Cup fever. I do think the national hunt season this weekend could really properly step up a notch.
We will get into that. The busy, the kind of, this is the time the kind of jump season is beginning to kick in. It's every week, every day we've got action, but this week has not been good.
No, not ask it anyway. With a lot of high-profile names kind of pulling edge at the ground. Constitution Hill being obviously the most high-profile one, which was very reminiscent of the Altior debate of what Nicky Henderson had about taking out the ground in the last minute. In defence of Henderson, he's always a cautious operator when it comes to his top-class horses. He's not going to take many unnecessary risks, and he felt that one with Constitution Hill on Saturday at Ascot was a bit too risky. That's understandable, and you pull him out for, as stated, unsuitable ground. Where it gets a little bit dangerous and trappy is the rhetoric and how often that this is happening. The language used on, particularly on the Sunday when he was in Sky Sports Racing, the fact that he would have been wounded and he'd been out for the rest of the year if he'd ran him is just a ludicrous suggestion. It implies that the ground's unsafe. It wasn't unsafe. It was unsuitable, but it wasn't unsafe.
Yeah.
So applying that, and it's you just can't take the risk out of the sport sometimes. Formula One, there's so many safety measures and things. Constitution Hill could get an injury at any point at any time. No matter what the ground, you can whack into a hurdle and get injured that way. If it's a welfare issue, then just remove all the hurdles, pack it up, and let's bin the whole thing, to be honest, because it is ridiculous in that regard. The water table's a big, massive problem. It's pretty hard ground underneath, good to soft, which was in the surface. That was the case. It's unsuitable, and it would have been disappointing. And
it's this thing as well. You've got
the level of language being used that I think is kind of grating at people now.
Yeah, and it's this thing as well of you've got all this kind of blended in together. You've got the fact that it is a lot drier down south, and it usually is, and we're seeing that. I mean, we're from the same part of Ayrshire where I feel it's rained constantly for weeks, so we don't understand this the way maybe somebody like Nicky Henderson understands it, like where you're down at Ascot and it is dry. I mean, during the summer they had 40-degree days, and we can't see that. But you also have this thing of, with all this blended together, you then have a walkover in a race. You have 3 stars, 3 Cheltenham winners going there. That's a big box office for a lot of punters. Now, a lot of punters will be going there regardless of who's running. But you've got Constitution Hill, Long Press, Edwardstone, all scheduled to run 3 hours before the race, and they get pulled out. Now, you can make the case of as well that if you're going to watch Barcelona back in the day and Lionel Messi wasn't playing, are you entitled to have your money back? No, you're not. But you also have this thing as well where, what I looked at it, and I don't know if you'll agree with this or not, the way it was all set up as if like they had Nico de Boinville out to announce that Constitution Hill wasn't running. It was all set up like it was like some sort of massive announcement, like it was a positive. We knew it was coming. You said it in your tweet the other day, and it was spot on. It was entirely predictable. And you've got all these things mixed together, and it is not a good look for national hunt racing. And Henderson's been through this before with Shishkin back in the day when it was deemed that it was too soft to run. If he gets massive rain in Newcastle between now and Saturday, and he pulls Constitution out because it's too soft, where does that leave us? Now, that's probably very unlikely, but it's not impossible.
Well, for him, it would probably take him to the international hurdle at Cheltenham, for instance, for Constitution Hill. But he's a big rangy horse. So on that point, I'm not surprised by it. But it's the predictable kind of weights announced. We don't need a running commentary of it each day about what's going to happen, and it's already happening again with like constant ground updates. That constant ground updates are fine if they're accurate. An interesting one that I thought was at Warwick and Edwardstone ran in what was described as good to soft. Like Tom Can said, it's good ground and things like that. And Alan King disputed that and said no, it was actually softer than it was. That might be true, but there's so many instances now of high-profile meetings where the ground isn't as it's described, and it's not good enough, and it throws the form book completely out the window. Nobody knows what's going on, and if trainers can't trust the ground, then how can punters trust the ground, which is such a key element in any form of any race? And it just leaves you with no confidence in the product, and that is a massive, massive problem. And it goes bigger than Constitution Hill, who's a fantastic horse and potentially could be an all-time horse, but he is a racehorse at the end of the day. They're there to race, and if you err on the side of caution too often, it gets boring and people just switch off, and it's not bettable, it's not viable. I'm looking at this race at Friday night going, well, what's the point? Because it could totally change come Saturday.
That's the thing.
Why waste my time beforehand, and then beforehand again, and then waste my afternoon watching a Mickey Mouse 3-runner heat or a match race?
You've got Lysa St Calvados as well. Like St Calvados is a good example. A lot of people I know, like just reading through things, were fancying St Calvados each way. But then you've got a thing where he's now 2-7 because of how many horses pull out. So where's the enjoyment for a casual punter just going, right, I'm sitting on a horse at 18-1 and then the next minute he's 2-7? It does get boring.
Yeah, I mean, it's when a sport's and it's desperate for like new blood to look into it. Understand the trainers and them being in around the yard and things like that, but to attract new people to the game, beggars can't be choosers. But certain connections can, because they can afford to skip $100,000 prize. I mean, that was a penalty kick. It was a penalty kick in comparison to Saturday for Constitution Hill at the moment. And there's also no harm in getting beat. I mean, Arkle get beat, at least turned up, and he's probably gonna live to fight another day. The same could easily happen for Constitution Hill. If you think it's not around, just pull them up. Like they did with Shiskin Champion Chase. You don't need to persevere and flog it if it doesn't. If it's not suitable ground. It's disappointing, and I think a line could have been drawn under it at the time and say, oh well, we can move on. This is the case. I just didn't want to take the risk. But the fact's going on and on again. I mean, there's another interview with him today in the Racing Post. It's constant. I mean, it's fine, just pull them out. That's in the day. That's it. It's disappointing for everyone. Let's move on. But it's like a revolving door of over and over again, and it's playing out again this week, and it just becomes really, really tiresome.
And it's a thing as well where, I mean, all due respect to the likes of Goshen and Cool Cody, but the way everybody pulled out, it's becoming 3-runner races, and horses like that are winning Grade 2s. Now, no disrespect to them, but that shouldn't be happening. And we do have this problem as well that we've had for a long time. The quality is not there for the amount of races we have.
Yeah, well, the programme does need a kind of overhaul, doesn't it? I mean, there needs less fixtures, less races of those kind of Grade 2, to maybe turn some of them back to kind of more attractive handicaps, or just have to maybe lower the quality of the racing. Like handicaps drop down to Class 3s or Class 4s, because if the quality's not there, then it isn't there. The quantity doesn't seem to be there either for these kind of stellar meetings. So they might have to kind of lower their sights a little bit in that regard. The programme does need a shake-up. The BHA have moved to kind of have a bit more power and have a bit more say over the fixture list, but you just do feel that the damage has been done, because you've seen the movie time and time again. Cheltenham and Sunday, I mean, that November meeting could easily now be 2 days instead of 3. I mean,
absolutely.
A total irrelevance. The Schlure Chase, I mean, we seen Edwardstone pulled out for the Schlure Chase, and Alan King, that's kind of had doubts about Ascot all season. He's in there as a top top-rated runner in a handicap, a track that he knows doesn't like, and why make the entry in the first place? It doesn't make sense to me in that regard. And I think there's a massive disconnect between people that are in the industry that can just afford to like pass up chance after chance. The prize money doesn't matter to the people at the top because it is kind of a day out for them. It is a hobby for them. For those that don't have that kind of financial luxury and that level of interest to the casual, the recreational kind of horse racing follower, it's a pretty dull spectacle now at the moment. And hopefully the rain will come, hopefully change it. I'm quite heartened by the weekend's cards that nobody's holding up at the moment. Okay. Ireland, you usually get better fields than not, but yeah, you do have sympathy with trainers in the regard that they can't kind of run horses on unsuitable ground, but using it as a welfare excuse or unsafe ground is a dangerous game, because it does give kind of these activists a stick to beat you with.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, if you're citing unsuitable ground, not unsafe ground, as a welfare concern, that's no good. I mean, if it was that ground at March or springtime, then it'd be perfectly fine. And if somebody could turn around and say, well, the water table's slightly different, then it is tenuous excuse in the context of general welfare.
Yeah,
but overall, it's not for certain types of horses. If you get a big horse that once it's toe in the ground, you're not going to run it in good ground anyway. And I think most people that accept that, it's fine, just move on. There'll be another day. But it's just how it's constantly churning out. It's the same people, it's the same type of horse over and over again. It just becomes very, very tiresome, and it turns you off.
Yeah, that's the word for it, tiresome. I don't see it improving unless there's a radical change. And we get, obviously, that the ground's changing, we get that, but it's going to be, when you're, as you say there, you've hit it in the head, when you're going into the kind of welfare situation, it's becoming a dangerous game. But we do have some other questions, couple more. What is your early pick for the King George? Now, Hitman obviously made a mark in the market as well. We thought there was a bit of some support for Galloping Deschamps. I know it's been cooled down by Willie Mullins, but if I was to give you a free bet, who would it be for the King George?
We mentioned last week that I would love to see Capodanno running this, but time seems to be going against him to get out, to get a run, and contemplate going there. Hitman would still have a bit of question to answer at that level. Brave Man's Game as a horse, I'm not totally convinced by off the bridle. I think he's too short in the race. So, and I go back to last year's winner, Tornado Flyer. I thought it was a satisfactory reappearance at the Colin. No, he had the run of the race up front, but they went too slow for his liking. He was coming back at Blue Lord at the line. He'd done nothing since last year's King George. That was an encouraging kind of pipe opener. I wouldn't be surprised if he just tried to sit off the Nichols Battalion again and try and pick them up again. I think he's a bit fair enough each way price at the moment, but 7-8 to 1 in a race that looks pretty weak and looks likely to cut up. I don't know
who I fancy. I agree with you in Hitman. I think he's got a lot to find. Brave Man's Game, if he gets the run of the race, probably should be the one to beat. But as you say, off the bridle, the only 2 times I've seen him off the bridle was at Aintree, and he didn't look like he enjoyed it. So when he's like Kempton last year, he was really good. I thought he was clear. But when you ask him, that question, is he going to be able to? The Galloping Deschamps one's interesting because there was clearly some suggestion he was maybe going here. It's been cooled down. Do you think he's potentially going this way?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's on the agenda at all. I just think he's obvious he's a speed horse, and it'll probably suit him as a first test over 3 miles. But I don't think you want to thrust him at King George. The album photo to Tramore route looks likely for him. There was a setback that he had early on. It was kind of a niggly thing, and I think that's kind of been the one run and done kind of plan into the Gold Cup there, because it'll be soft enough. I mean, Manila Indo could go there, for instance, but it's generally a soft enough race. It's more of a stamina test, which you would need to kind of answer in that regard in terms of safer track to make sure you get the Gold Cup trip, because you don't want to just graduate from novice company going straight into a Gold Cup. It's far from ideal, no matter how much scope and how much generational talent that you might have. No, I think he seems to be just gonna. I'll just run Tornado Flag and that'll do me kind of thing at the moment. Envoy Allen's in there. I think he'd probably struggle around. I think I can see a Minolindo kind of style, unsuitable race for him there. So you can only really see 5 or 6 runners at this stage. It's not really an inspiring market to look at. The flyer is just about the percentage call at the moment.
Yeah, I don't see any. I'm not keen on it just now at the moment. Next question. What was your favourite Cheltenham Festival of all time to watch? I've got 2, but I'll give you the floor first.
2016 for me.
It's one of mine, yeah.
Just a roll of order. Altior, Duvan, Ante Power, York Hill, Vautour, Sprinter Sacre's incredible recovery. Thistlecrack, Don Cossack. There's personal bunting highlights as well. I mean, getting most of them was viable. You know, when Altior beat Min in the Supreme and being in the right one, you kind of felt that this week's probably going to be a good one in that regard. Thistlecrack bounding home in the stairs hurdle. York Hill when he was York Hill. Ante Power champion hurdle win. So many. Vroom Vroom Mag, Mares hurdle, and even the last, Solar Impulse won the Grand Annual, and that was done at 28-1. So just one of those kind of mental weeks where everything went right, and it was just top class race after top class race that year, I felt. Yeah,
2016 is my first one because I was there on the Tuesday and did pretty well. I went for Min, I went for the 4 Richie Hot Pots, so I was kicking myself that day, but the 3 of them came in, Duvan, Ante Power, Vroom Vroom Mag. Seeing Altior and Duvan in the flesh is something I'll cherish because that was good. As you say, Sprinter Sacre the next day, Vautour, who should have run in the Gold Cup, thanks Ruby, and on the Friday, obviously Don Cossack, who had been desperate to run in the Gold Cup the year before. He went for the Ryanair and didn't get. I thought he maybe found it too quick in the Ryanair the year before, but to see him win the Gold Cup, he was outstanding. So 2016. And actually this year's for maybe more reasons, just because it was an amazing distraction from what was going on. So this year's was up there as well. So yeah, 2 really good Cheltenham festivals. Plus I did all right in the last one on the Friday. I had 6 out of 6. And the 7th I was waiting on adamantly chosen, didn't win. Banbridge won, but it was still a really good day. And it's recovered. It was certainly a profitable festival. Let's get into the recap for the week. We'll start on Wednesday at Warwick. We have Jonbon 7-4 for the Arkle after an impressive beginner's chase, beating Montmoral and West Cork. Calum, it was obviously exciting. We were looking forward to seeing this horse over fences. Out of 10, how was he?
Yeah, it was solid 8, isn't it? He made one slight mistake, I think. That was about it. In races like that nature, you know he's probably going to win. You're looking for kind of signs of improvement in terms of temperament. Is he going to free sweat? Is he going to be too keen? On that regard, I thought he was much improved, a lot more relaxed for fences. Montmoral tried to push him early doors, didn't bother him. I think Montmoral doesn't further West Cork. He jumped to the right again like he did in his debut at Warwick. He might be more of a kind of handicap project down the line. He might be better suited going the other way around as well, over fences. But he did it well enough. Cutting him that much is a bit of an overreaction, probably because on the immediate front there is no British challenge, and you can see him just bunting off races like Shishkin and Altior did, and arriving unbeaten, and it's going to be very hard to beat, particularly when you haven't really seen anything from Willie Mullins in Ireland as of yet. That might change quite soon. So if you do like him, I would just wait, see a couple of Mullins' horses, because he might come back out to something like 9-4, 5-2 perhaps, and then a win again, and then we clip back in. But and Arkle winners tend to go to form. Like Nicky Henderson, he knows it's a tried and tested path. So, and I think bookmakers have been seriously burnt before by a lot of comfortable favourites closing in it. So it is a market that's always priced very protectively against the favourite, and it's going to be Jonbon all the way by the looks of it.
Yeah, I mean, they jumped well. We knew he would improve for a fence. There was a couple of fences he jumped, and he just reminded me of Duvan. Like just the way he jumped them, just the way he made ground it, just in the air. I was really impressed. Now I've not been his biggest fan. I've thought he's a tidy hurdler. Is he going to be too keen to win like an Arkle with 10 runners in it? I think he will improve over a fence. I think he's probably going to go to Henry VIII. He'll maybe have a bump up in maybe January, February before Cheltenham, and he'll go there. I think is in tip top.
Yeah, the Lightning maybe in Doncaster, for
instance,
getting more and more experience in and just peak for Cheltenham. You know, it's such a tried and tested path. There's next to no British opposition. I think there's a couple. I think Banbridge is a serious player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he deserves a lot of respect. I think Mullins will have a couple. There might be a few others that can crawl out the woodwork. So just right now there doesn't appear to be much depth against them, hence the price. But down the line it could be quite a different story. He's going to scare a fair few away. I don't think we're going to get a wide open kind of big runner Arkle. It's probably going to be a select 5 or 6 runner job at the moment.
Yeah, quick word in Monmouth as well. Like you can tell he really could do a step up in trip. Now I'm not one for saying like let's think ahead to April, but if he's not being targeted for that Novices Chase and the first day Aintree, I'll be surprised because that seems to be right up his street.
Yeah, I think Paul Nicholls has got quite a few of these kind of type of horses. Again, he just last season was such a massive drop off for him.
Mm-hmm.
So you think he might have to take some time to kind of really find his feet and find his level, like a lot of these kind of highly touted juveniles need to do when they run an open company or novice company. All of a sudden they've got to kind of find their feet. So I think he might take a little bit of time, but yeah, he'll probably mature into one in the spring. I think he might need soft ground though for that. So you want to kind of try and make hay within the winter. Maybe there'll be something at Chepstow, maybe for instance, the Welsh Grand National meeting where you probably get your toe in the ground, or Lingfield's Winter Million. Meetings like that they might be seen to better effect.
Yeah. Next one, Thursday and Clonmel couple to mention. Dolcita won the Mayor's Chase. They're beating Scarlet and Dove in last year's Mayor's Chase winner at Cheltenham Ellie May. 10-1 for the Mayor's Chase. Now she obviously has improved for a fence, there's no doubt about that. But out of the 3, who's the most likely to go to the Mayor's Chase and win it at Cheltenham?
You would still lean towards Ellie May and Scarlet and Dove over that. They were both reportedly in need of it, even though the market didn't kind of reflect that because they looked so far clear beforehand that it might not matter. I think Scarlet and Dove probably ran a slightly better race in terms that she beat ground round the bend after making a mistake and kind of plugged on, even though Ellie May headed her for a place at the end. Ellie May's usually remarkably consistent. Who won the Mayor's Chase last year? It was kind of a blanket kind of finish. And you can see the markets kind of trying to find something that would, surpass that level in terms of moves for like Dino Blue, Allegory Devassi, Tell Me Something Girl. You'd be pretty disappointed if one of those 3 couldn't really make an impact at Mayor's Chase level this year, given that they're novices and have scope for improvement.
Yeah. Next one on Clonmel, Blue Lord, the 16-1 for the Ryanair. Really had to work hard to beat Tornado Flyer. It was a really gritty race. I thought I was quite impressed with Blue Lord. They could jump better. I think as well, when you beat a King George winner, you're entitled to kind of make that step up in class. What did you think of Blue Lord? Were you surprised at how well he handled the step up?
No, I don't think it was much of a step up the early season. I think it was a bit of a slowly run farce. It's just a perfect pipe opener for Tornado Flyer to get his confidence back ahead of a King George repeat bid. And if you're looking for a race for Blue Lord to slightly step up and trip, middle in kind of class, a slowly run race like that is a perfect way to do it. And even though I thought he made heavy weather of it, I mean, you expect him to kind of went upside, let's breeze by and go win comfortably. He's holding on by a neck. Tornado Flyer's coming back at him at the line. I think he's a grade 2 kind of operator. I think he's just below the best. But if Alaho's not there in the Ryanair, you might take some he might take a hand in the places, but I think he's kind of limited. I think that Arkle exposed that last year. I don't think it's a red hot Arkle, particularly that some of the horses in midfield in that race have run shockingly coming out. So we haven't seen the winner. The second one's sadly no longer with us in Gavin Arkle. So I think that Arkle form, the 2 mile novice form of last year, is up to serious scrutiny at the moment. No, I wouldn't be interested in them at open company at all.
It's a tough one because obviously he's going to need to improve again on that. But I thought the way he gritted out against a horse that stays further, it was okay. Saturday at Haydock, there's a few here. Hitman's now 3-1 for the King George. Maydall 11 lengths winner. It was he didn't really have to do much. He jumped well enough. I'm not going out my way to say 3-1 King George is a great price, because if he's going to win a King George, I think British National Hunt Racing's far worse shape than I feared.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because before you're taking that race, you're thinking you're seeing kind of a lot of fancy prices about Hitman for a King George. I think I can see him running well up to a point, and the race is, even now from an Ante perspective, before really seeing genuine entries, the race has completely fallen apart, and Hitman seems to be the second best of the result. We didn't learn much at Haydock, Harry Corbin said, "I'm the best horse, I'll make all, and you won't catch me, you won't pass me." I did flag up his record before that, and I think he can hang behind winners, I think, and that'd be concerned, because if Frodon takes his chance, is he going to get to the leads? Is he going to run quite quietly? He's improving. He's on an upward curve. I think he's short of that level at the moment, and he's definitely far too short at the moment for King George. I mean, 3-172, he should be a sixes chance, really at the moment. Particularly when Tornado Flyers like 7 or 8.
You would maybe back him at like maybe 8-1, things like that, because he's maybe that level, but 3-1 it suggests to me that's a bad look.
The Paul Nichols factor as well, and he has and it's an improving kind of record that kind of Clandiobo had of going through the ranks and maybe making that grade. He's going to be well targeted at it. He's definitely going to. He's not going to disgrace himself, that.
No.
In the same regard, you find it difficult to see him winning it.
I don't think he's that top class. Like I think a King George winners back in the day, and I maybe sound a bit old fashioned here, but are you telling me that Hitman? I mean, probably Cotto Star would have been 3-1 in his first King George. You know what I mean? Like it would.
Yeah, you can only beat what's there in front of you. It's not that race at the moment. It's not a vintage renewal. It doesn't look like one. Form might surprise you, and it might turn out to be pretty good. You don't know. It's at the moment in ratings and figures and what he's achieved, he does look a bit too short for a King George.
Next one, Botox Haas won the Stairs Handicap Hurdle quite well, actually. 14-1 for the Protektorat. He's already qualified. I think he finished second behind Shoot First in that first qualifier. So this is a horse I fancied a couple of years ago for a Coral Cup. I've always felt he would improve for a step up. He looks to be a proper 3-miler. Do you think he's potentially maybe a Protektorat player?
The problem is now that he's won that race and Shoot First beaten quite handsomely, and he'll be better off at the weights with him come spring. So go Stairs Hurdle, take a chance in Stairs Hurdle. You're blowing your mark. He's rated 150 now. There's not many ways to go. The Stairs Hurdle, all right. I think the favourite's pretty good and going to be hard to beat, but there is not many unexposed progressive types stepping into that company that definitely stay the trip. He does. I would roll the dice and graded company next and see what that. That would be I'd be looking for, because I think Pierre Tom's. I think when you're sailing north into 150 and you're not going to get much out of the favourite now in terms of handicap, and who does look. I mean, a handicapper's plot good thing, he's going to be wrapped away, and when he come up, maybe you could argue 61's not bad.
It's actually probably a good bit of value because he looks. Yeah, it looks to be exactly the plan.
There's more to come with the C&D and Charles Williams with handicappers, so you know exactly what's going to happen there. So even though you would just want to see more of the qualifiers, really, because other stables can do that too. He's he's one of these horses that kind of been is now betwixt and between. So you just try and find one of these kind of stay in Grade 2s and see where you're at. I think he's worth trying it in graded company now.
The Betfair Chase, the first Grade 1 of the season, was won by Protektorat. A bit of a shock. Obviously, Arkle was coming to defend his crown. Rachel didn't look happy at all on him, and I think everybody could see he just wasn't up to speed. Now it's not been disclosed if there's anything wrong. It doesn't appear to be, but we'll get into that in a minute. Protektorat, massive step up, and he looked really good actually. Now, is he Gold Cup material? Is he 8-1 for the Gold Cup? Is he that good? But he certainly showed that he was better than he was last season with that run. It's
without doubt a strong British challenge, and if Arkle even was on his game, there would have certainly been a race involved. He's definitely improved. He's young enough to even go further. He stays really well. He might like it softer at Cheltenham. Think like genuine spring ground. You know, he might get caught out a bit of tap for two like he was last year, like most of them were. But the winner did it well that day. He's not replicated that form. He apparently was working well beforehand, and they still haven't found anything, which suggests maybe the Gold Cup was a bigger effort, and it might have taken a lot out of him. You know, that is his kind of for a horse so young. He has been in the go for a long time,
and he's had that in him to maybe sometimes kind of blow out completely. Like he can sometimes either be brilliant or bang average.
Yeah, but not as badly as that. Like finishing races out. And the paddock was interesting because he was very quiet, which is unlike him. So there is something there that they've got to kind of find out about. You can't totally dismiss him. He's a Gold Cup winner. You know, I mean, it'd be foolish not to. But there's enough to kind of steer clear, even at a drifted price now, because you would need to kind of see some sort of spark again next time out.
Where do you think next Christmas?
Where Arkle will go next? You go Leopard's time, wouldn't you? Christmas. Aiming for that, you'd think. Definitely. Protektorat. I would like Denman Chase, but maybe before that, there's a Winter Million race, maybe at Lingfield. The Cotswold Chase is a notoriously bad prep for Cheltenham Gold Cup, so even though that would suit, you'd be kind of wary about that. So he's not going to go the King George, but definitely a steer. He handled the trip, and he looks a lot more kind of furnished and relaxed as well this season. He's matured, and he was in that bunch of the places last year. So he's a genuine contender. I think 8-10-1 is about fair, to be honest, at this point. Even though there might be a couple that are maybe a bit more star quality about them than he does, but he's very solid.
Yeah. Ask it a couple to mention. Cool Cody beat St Calvados 10 lengths. Bit of a farce of a race. Bit of a farce. It was a complete farce. But Cool Cody obviously won the Festival Plate last year. Is he going to be a handicap player this year, or is he going to maybe step up into graded company? How do you see that going?
Where do you go? It's like Botox has. You're going up and up and up for graded matches and small tactical races like that. Hopefully, I haven't checked his mark again, but I hope he hasn't gone up much for that, because it turned out St Calvados bled. So I mean, even the match form.
And the jockey's a maniac.
It's pretty awful. Well, yeah, he's going off, but just could settle him. These kind of tactical graded races. There's just nowhere to hide. You can't just sit and have a bit of cover. You can either able to restrain the horse or not, and in that case, it wasn't. So it was kind of curtains for him from a long way out. Yeah, it was one of those kind of joke spectacles on a day that was kind of a bit of a joke at Ascot. But nice to have Cool Cody winning a graded race.
Absolutely. Another horse, I think I was quite moved actually by Gary Moore's interview when Goshen won the Ascot Hurdle. He's capable of that on his day. There's days where he's capable of being a complete blowout, but he won't turn up at Cheltenham. He's not going to go back to Cheltenham, but he's on his day, we saw earlier this year over fences, something was wrong, and then he goes to Ascot and does that.
Yeah, two of the most unreliable horses on planet Earth fighting it out after the withdrawal of Constitution Hill and brewing up a storm. And Goshen really prevailed. Funny thing is, all the ground talk about Constitution Hill is that an absolute mudlark has ended up winning this
Correct.
2 prize at 100 grand. That is as unsuitable as for Goshen, but one's taken a chance and got the reward from it when one didn't. The flip side is that it can go wrong, but it's good to see him winning. But he's going to plod around and win these kind of Grade 2 races, isn't he? When the ground's right. The Winter Million race is absolutely perfect for him. He can stay a little bit further, so National Spirit, something like that, things like that. He could probably mop up and be a player in. But yeah, he's kind of solid enough. I thought he was actually quite tractable by his standards on Saturday. So maybe he is learning albeit pretty slowly, I think. But no,
yeah,
I wouldn't touch him personally.
I wouldn't touch him for anything at Cheltenham.
It's still nice to see him win because he's one of those kind of horses that's kind of been a bit kind of infamous now, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
at least he dances every dance.
Yeah, exactly. And next horse to mention, a good selection for us both. We both tipped him up. Boot Hill won the handicap there. Again, good performance. He gutted it out. It was a horse I think we both liked the idea of maybe getting into handicap company. What do you think they do him now?
I think you just go through the ranks with these kind of 7 or 2 mile races. He is still kind of novice, so I mean, Harry Fry did ambitiously say that he try campaign as some sort of Arkle type, quite find the races with the right prize money for novice status. So handicap's the way to go, and that gives you an option that you might find the Grand Angle pretty suitable. He's got pace, and yeah, I think there's more mileage in his mark yet. He won that off 140. I think he's probably a 150 horse at least. So they make hay while you can with him. The second So Scottish isn't bad either. I know those two were kind of pretty unexposed and they came through quite well to fight it out. So I imagine those two of them will probably go on winning quite a few races this season.
On to Punchestown, with quite a few horses to mention over Saturday and Sunday. The first one is a horse that I've loved and I think could actually be better over a fence. Protektorat won easily. Obviously, Jonbon me was pulled out with unsuitable ground again. So 20-1 maybe for the novices chases at Cheltenham. You'll need to see him against better opposition, but he did it well enough.
Yeah, that's the thing. Winning at 1-5, but he get beat at 1-14 last year. So, well, that's fine by me. 1-25 seems a bit steal in comparison to that. He's beaten nothing, Jonbon, the non-runner, kind of took any competitors out of it. But I mean, he's won it tightly enough. It's a good starting point for him, and next time out you'll find out more, which is just where you're at this stage of the season, and where you're at. We can be quite a few of these horses.
Next one, the Crannockstown was won by Midnight Run for Gordon Elliott. Nice performance, I would say. It was a fairly decent race. There was a few. Mars Harper was in it. Obviously, was unlucky. Would the one that fell have won if it stayed in its feet? But Midnight Run was okay, I thought.
I thought it was pretty poor for a Grade 2 novice race for a Crannockstown.
It was a poor field, but it was one of those things where they were all competitive. So, I was saying, it was so even. I would say I don't think there was a standout horse in it.
Yeah, but it won't translate to future graded form.
No.
I think Midnight Run's all right, but Banbridge is a stone better off than him.
Yeah, so we'll leave that there then. 16-1 for the Ballamore is Absolute Notions. Looks a nice prospect. What do you think, Cam?
Decent horse. Is he more of a Bartlett type than a Ballamore type? That's what you would think down the line, because he looked better the further he went. He went battled back quite well. He might want it a bit softish as well. Gordon Elliott, I think, is in a bit of a quandary here with quite a lot of his novice hurdlers, and saying that Albert Bartlett's not kind of gone too well for him in the past. Do you kind of leave them alone and keep them for the novice chasing status, which they seem to be bred to do? They seem to be better over fences, or do you run them in the Ballamore, really? I think it might be a Ballamore type, but I mean, you're assuming that American Mike's the number one to really beating that race. So yeah, I think he's one of plenty of 16, 20, 25-1 shots that you can see running very, very well in an Albert if he does indeed go there, he might like Rob Coors, like Jerry Colombi last year. He might just let's just play the long game with us.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. The next one, Queensbrook, get back to form. She looked a lot better than she did in her seasonal reappearance. 10-1 now for the Mares Hurdle. Jumped a lot better than she did. Even last year, she was untidy at a few. She looked a lot more polished over her hurdles there.
Yeah, and Gordon Elliott says that this horse is tough to get fit, and you can kind of see that she's improved massively from that run. Second, the Mares Hurdle last year when she had a rush preparation. Elliott really rated her. I think she was kind of the major horse that's flagged up in these stable tours. Does she have the necessary class? You can see something classier beating her, like see an Epitaunt, maybe a Brandy Love, maybe better. But if it's a little bit soft and if it is attritional, then she does stay pretty well. And I think that's where you see the best out of her. I mean, Black Tears came out and chinned some classy acts late. I think she is an each-way player. I wouldn't dismiss her, but I think everything would need to kind of fall right. It would need to be kind of a bit of a stamina test, and they need to be the word soft.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of respect for her, but I think you, as you say, I think she maybe needs a bit softer. I think she maybe needs it to a couple of horses to maybe blow out for her to really contend. Sunday, Delta Work is now 2-1 for the cross country. It was 9-4, so he has been shortened, but he had to dig really deep to win it. And there was times, I think, and I'm probably going to bring this up again with Jack Kennedy. There was a couple of times on Sunday I thought Jack Kennedy left. He thought he was on a superstar, and he left it too late. But then he maybe just left it too late. But with Delta Work, he just got there in time.
Yeah, it's quite a demanding kind of banks course. It's quite tricky. It's quite notorious, and it's also 5-6 furlongs shorter, which over that where they go quite slow, and it can become a little bit of a dash. And the ground was probably quite quick for him as well. I don't think it was ideal for him, so he could have pulled out the fire against a horse that for jumping regulation fences, he'd be given about 3-4 stone. It's quite wild in that regard how much of a level cross country chases can be. I think that was as unsuitable as it could possibly get from there. He'll be seen to better effect at Cheltenham. It's a more conventional cross country track. He's more likely to maybe get a bit more cut in the ground, perhaps. And the further the trip is going to help him massively as well. He seems like he needs it. Hence why there's still talk about going to a Grand National, for instance. Because the trip just doesn't seem long enough at any point for him. It took a long time to overhaul Tiger Roll, and that wasn't Tiger Roll's ground. So you'd be a bit mindful. I wouldn't have cut him, because if they do go a crawl, you'd be a bit kind of mindful of his back class has got to get him out of it. If it turns into a dash, it could catch him out slightly, but no, he's very hard to beat unless some kind of classy new recruit kind of comes in and has maybe a bit more pace that could kind of potentially trouble him, but they're kind of clutching at straws in that regard at the moment.
Yeah. Next one, Nusret won a nice 3-year-old race. I was really keen to see how the Joseph O'Brien horse got on, but he did not get going at all. But Nusret won it well enough, into 16th with the Triumph Hurdle. What did you think?
Yeah, well, won it with O'Brien's perceived second string. It was interesting that it was over to ride. I did look at him pre-Triumph, pre coming out at 33s kind of thing, but I just couldn't be bothered pulling the trigger really. And the fact that the other three market principals didn't run the race would put a slight question mark on the form, but he did it very efficiently. I think he's a player. Whether you'll get some very good horses coming out the woodwork that nobody knows, and he could be a Fred Winter horse, for instance, down the line, But I think he is one to follow. I think even though the form might be a bit questionable, because there was only the race was marked up as if only 3 could win it and 2 of them didn't run the race. So you'd have to be a little bit mindful of that fact. But no, he does have quite a good profile to do well in juvenile company this year. So yeah, he's of interest, I would say.
Next one, Darren's Hope. Well, it was a game performance to beat Manila Crown. Brilliant to see Darren's Hope win, and it was really good for connections. Again, I thought Jack Kennedy left it a bit too late. I thought if he'd maybe been in the race a bit more, he'd have got home. But Darren's Hope clung on well. I don't think Darren's Hope's going to win a race at Cheltenham, is he?
Probably not. No, it's a good win for Robert Murphy, isn't it? It's a nice kind of race fit. like Ballyshannon Rose, who just missed out in that Mayor's Novices chase. These are these graded races. That's their main goal.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to get a chance to shine when the main guns are just coming back and might be a little bit off it. That was the case there. I thought Manila Craner just did his best Don Pauly impression. He needs about 5 miles. An Ashel Hunt chase, even that looks too far from potentially. I think he's not quite at that level. He could develop. He's going to improve for that run. He'll have his odd day, but he just looks very, very slow, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I liked him last year for the Bartlett, but when you look at what won the Bartlett last year, there was no way he was beating the nice guy last year. So yeah, you can tell he's really going to need
plodding on for third or fourth.
You can see him running. Yeah, you can see him running. You mentioned a couple of years ago.
And they will be able to find some races for him, but at top class company, they're just going to be away and gone, and then that's that really.
Yeah. Next one, obviously, State Man won the Morgiana, 5-1 now for the champion hurdle. It was a comfortable display. Didn't look in any danger at any point. I thought it was out of 10. I would say maybe a 6 or a 7. It was solid enough. Is he a point behind? Should he be a point behind a 2-time champion hurdle winner after that?
I think it just confirmed that he's probably going to be the main challenger to the top 2. He looks the definitive third best at the moment. He stays a bit further. He would have probably liked a stronger pace to chase it, so that'll probably add those kind of little airy jumps maybe. A bigger fuel probably help him as well. I thought Sharjah ran with credit in second, given the long layoff. I think for a Madison hurdle, I think he's like 40-1 the champion hurdle, which if the big two stay clear, you wouldn't be surprised if he ran onto a place again. Because it's going to carp, isn't it? It could be like a 5-6 runner heat. This if Constitution Hill and Honeysuckle hold their ground, State Man goes. It's not much else will go. This race probably was more infamous for who didn't turn up than who
that's
did.
what I was going to touch on. Vauban and Sir Gerhard obviously didn't turn up. Vauban, I think there's potentially some patience going on there. I don't think they're not in a rush to get him out this year as much as maybe we thought we were. Sir Gerhard, I don't know what's going on, because he's either 1 minute he's staying over hurdles and he's going to the Hatton's Grace, the next minute he's going for a beginner's chase in the next couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on there, but what do you think of the two that didn't turn up?
What I think is Willie Mullins isn't happy with both of them at the moment, and doesn't like them running. He was particularly almost kind of bristling in interviews as well about, I'll run them when I'm happy with them.
Yeah.
He's not happy with them at the moment. More concerned about Vauban, because this seemed like a long-term target. When this was priced up, it was like 4-9. So you think setback there. You do have to think something has happened quite notably, in my opinion.
I think, because he's 4 turning 5, even if there is a setback, I don't think there's like a mad rush to get him back.
Yeah, they might be more gentle and take time. I can see that angle. So yeah, it might turn into kind of a bedding in season with him.
Yeah.
Right now, Sir Gerhard probably more puzzling. I just think he's not working well at home. That is the only thing I could probably say about him. Not working well enough to translate over fences at the moment, because he would definitely do them over fences. He might not be happy what he's seen in that one. And hurling wise, maybe Punchestown, maybe there's more to that defeat than was the case at the start. He just gives the impression that he's not quite back yet, and you probably need his kind of first run. Quite notably, he's still in that Hatton's Grace as an entry. But yeah, you'd be very mindful, particularly over fences. You'd be very mindful of him going anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with they two. I do think we'll maybe see Vauban maybe 1 or 2 runs. I don't think we'll see him. I don't think he'll be going to a champion hurdle, in my opinion, but it might. We'll see. She Wears It Well won the Pertemps qualifier. That's a horse who I've been burned a wee bit in the past. Two times I've tipped her up for the Mayor's Novice, first of all, then the Mayor's Hurdle. She didn't turn up for either. 14-1 for the Pertemps. She handled the step up and trip, I thought, very well, but my worry is that she's very fragile.
problem is, it was another race with no pace on at all,
Yeah.
and then a bit of a dash. I think in an attritional race at Pierre Thompson should probably get found out. I would like to see him a Coral Cup.
Mhm.
I think that would be a bit more suitable. Maybe even the Mayor's Hurdle. You'd try it at that. If she kind of kicks on from that, some confidence. Yeah, you just want to see her maybe string 2 or 3 runs together really,
Yeah.
before thinking about going to Cheltenham. As you say, she's not been twice, and it's third time going to be the charm. You wouldn't want to bank on it. But I mean, she could just be wrapped up and just kept completely fresh for that race, and that was a suggestion afterwards.
Yeah, possibly, because I mean, she's very. I mean, we saw last year I fancied her very strongly for that race at Christmas, and she just didn't. She think she hit a hurdle, and that was her, and we didn't see her again until then. So Dino Blue at Cork and Sunday, quite impressive. Jumped fairly right, which suggests to me maybe Cheltenham's not the be all and end all. She might possibly go to that race at Fairyhouse, but she was pretty decent, I thought.
Yeah, and there's some decent races at Limerick that she might be able to go for as well. But there's quite a few of these kind of males novices that are coming through. Wonder maybe Sir Gerhard not going Turners, and he's got a lot of Arkle and Stain types that maybe he might divert one of them to Turners, potentially. You do get £7 after all. Just because you've got a mare and it's enough, you don't need to run it at a mare's in the Mayor's Chase. Particularly Felly May, because it still holds her form. Why would you have like 3 or 4 in that and them are eligible for novice company? You could split them up that way a little bit. And GP McManus has got Ellie May, so I think she's Dino Blue reminds me a lot of Ellie May actually. In terms of she's quite slight, not heavily built, but quite nimble. I think she'll improve for that. We saw like there's a horse that jumped markedly right often Mount Ida that's won at Cheltenham, and the one that pipped Ellie May last 2 years ago. His name escapes me a little bit at the moment. She was quite notably jumping right. She still won the Mayor's Chase, so
Colreevy.
Colreevy, yeah. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility. She wouldn't be the first Mayor's novice hurdle favourite to blow out and come quite strongly. So
Epiton won a champion hurdle.
So yeah, she definitely does have a lot of potential. She's maybe starting to fulfil it, but again, another one where up in grade will reveal a lot more. Yeah,
final horse to mention on Monday at Kempton was Lac de Constance for the Skeltons, 20-1 for the Arkle. Very promising performance. Now, is he going to be a Grade 1 player this season over as a novice chaser? But he certainly can't deny that was impressive.
Well, you go the wayward lad at the same course and distance and find out there, because these 3-runner races are just no good, particularly when the odds-on favourite made a massive mistake at first and ran out and fell on in the confidence of that, they were told. And the second is a 3-miler.
Aye.
Better than nothing, basically. Yeah, it's good. He's a lot of upside. We just need to wait and see what happens with our lad next time out. There's a couple of novices at Cork as well on Sunday. The Irish Point and It's What Unites, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's What Unites quite easily in a fashion that pays a nice, handsome compliment to Path Daru of Gavin Cromwell's. So I think the Royal Bond in early December is going to be a pretty good race in that regard. Yeah,
it's been a fascinating week. We'll move into what's coming up this weekend. We've got some exciting racing on Friday. Tomorrow, we've got the declarations out for the Berkshire Novices Chase, the Grade 2 Stage Star. Looks as if he's going to take his run up. It's going to be a decent race, actually. You look at some of the horses in it. I'm just going to go through them just now. We've got the likes of Stage Star, Beauport, Campron, Sebastopol, Wonderwall. Decent race. Stage Star's odds on. Should he win?
Yeah, he's getting £5 from Beauport, who won at Carlisle, Colin Parker, quite well. I think he was kind of ready for that day. Stage Star was impressive in debut. Arguably as impressive as Jonbon was in thrashing West Cork, also like that. I think he's good. I expect him to win, and I probably expect him to be one of the Paul Nicholls' kind of high rank novice chasers this year, going on to bigger and better things. He should win that. Campron's jumping on debut was pretty deplorable. The rest shouldn't be good enough. So Stage Star, yeah, he should win that.
I think 3-star as well. Long distance hurdle champ, 15-8, Prishema 9-4. You've got Paisley Park in there, a former winner of the race. What do you think? This could be, if all these take the mount, it could be an interesting race.
It's an interesting race, a hot little race. Proskema is the one that's going to come in an upward curve. Young, progressive, sorted out quite well, but it was slowly run, turned into a bit of a dash. And he's going to get his ground. He likes it fairly quick, get good ground at Newbury. Top Star was second that day, won this last year. He's kind of interesting at 7-8 to win again. The big plus is Jonbon's back in board. I think it's an excellent rider. I think it's so underrated. He really should be with a big stable. He needs to be very gently handled. This was feathered into it, and he was the opener. And then Ian Coleman just threw the kitchen sink at him, which is not how you ride him. He just needs to like wind him, gradually wind him up. I think Jonbon will do that a bit better. And he won this last year, so I think he has a chance at a price. Would be like champ. He usually goes well, quite fresh, but he's 10 going 11.
Yeah,
it's a class act to it, and I don't think it'll be soft or attritional enough for Paisley Park to really get involved.
I think Prishema is the progressive horse in the race. I've said that. I said it last week. I think he could be a player in the stairs hurdle, but
the thing is here that the Thomas Darby races off levels with Proskema. There's a swing there, and the price doesn't really reflect that. So I'd just be chancing at him at the odds, but nothing too extravagant for sure.
The thing that gets me with this race is I know obviously Ian Coleman's got a brilliant relationship with Paisley Park, but you would imagine he would have probably, he would have chose champ if he had the choice.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. This stable jockey is perfectly fine as well. I think you find a lot of these jockey arrangements kind of a little bit up in the air, and they just kind of find their place slightly. Coleman's probably a long-term relationship with Paisley Park means you'd probably just go for that anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's going to be a fascinating Friday as well. Saturday we've got the fight in fifth. As it stands, Constitution Hill and Epataunt are both going to turn up. If Constitution Hill runs, he should just win.
I think he will. It's good to soft at the moment. They didn't get the rain they anticipated. Newcastle not supposed to get rain until racing, so there might be some potential backtracking going on there. I don't think there will. I think this time they'll probably roll the dice and run, and therefore I think they'll win, because Epataunt, even though she's won the last twice, it was a dead heat the last time she did win it, and I think she does tend to improve from her opening debuts. So I think I'd expect Constitution Hill to win it, and probably win it quite well. Not So Sleepy might run well. Pied Piper not running is a bit of a disappointment. That would have been an interesting flying the opening.
It would have actually
a week an interesting crossover in where you're at, because there's not much to go on in terms of our form, because we're just not really seeing enough horses come out to compare with. So yeah, it's a bit disappointing, but I would think Constitution Hill would beat Epataunt, really.
Yeah, I would think so. I think Constitution Hill will just win. Very interesting race at Newbury, the Grade 2 John Franklin Novices Chase. We've got Time Hill taking on Gelino Bello and McFabulous. That's a decent race.
Yeah, Gelino Bello didn't look. I mean, he was actually probably better than the results suggest. He could have won by further, but again, Harry Colby kind of didn't lead that occasion and let the runner up kind of get up in front of him for a wee bit. It turned into a bit of a mad dash, so it didn't look as good as it probably is. McFabulous, you can see he's kind of a solid operator, improved for a fence. He looks like the one at the moment that you would be earmarking for that Cato Star Novices Chase.
Yeah.
I think Paul Nicholls has a decent backing order for that.
He does actually, yeah.
I think there's 3 or 4 really good novice chasers that he's got at least. So interesting if they both run. And Time Hill has obviously got tons of back class. I thought there was a lot of promise in his opening run. There was scope to brush up and improve, which is what you kind of doubt when you hit a certain age. He's been around for long enough, and he's probably skilled quite regularly over the bigger obstacles at home. So Yeah, he's probably Tyngham's probably the one to beat in ratings, but those Nichols pair are going to give him a serious race, I think.
Yeah, it's an interesting race. I'm looking forward to that. The next race, obviously, we've got the Coral Gold Cup. It's always a fascinating handicap. Corrit Ramblers 5-1. You like a remastered 3 under through 5. Bustleton Fiddle on the Roof. Oscar Elite, who I particularly like for this. I think he's due a big win. He's always been knocking in the door. I think this could be his time. I've got Oscar Elite here at 9-1. Who do you fancy for the Coral Gold Cup?
That looks wide open, doesn't it?
It does, aye.
My form seems to be pretty prominent in this. With the winner, Corrit Rambler, being favourite. I quite like 3 under through 5. I think his hurdles are better than expected. Last time that was an obvious. Get rid of the cobweb stuff there with that. I think he's got a mark that's just about workable. It may be a bit high, early 150s, but I think he's got a earmark for this. He's a solid kind of honourable jumping type. I think he's got a decent each way chance for, let's be honest, I mean, the man in form, Paul Nicholls, training wise, start of the season, he's been absolutely spot on. So I mean, yeah, he'd be the one for that. There's other things in Newbury as well. Friday, you can see Jet Power coming out.
Yeah.
An entry. Balco Coastal seems to be a good novice chaser for Nicky Henderson. Those are the first 2 races at Newbury on Friday. And Saturday, Henderson's got an entry. Walking on Air has got a hurdle rating of 132.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Muted for a stairs hurdle. Given how Nicky Henderson loves targeting the Coral Cup, this horse has got to be of serious interest.
Yeah.
It's within a stone of 132. Done it before. Like, I mean, you've seen horses bolt up with him in the handicap company and just be put away for this. He targets that race really well. So, and with the long run, keep the long game in mind. It might not run, for instance, but if he wins and gives up £10 or something, and has a middling kind of race at Kempton over 2.5 miles again, something mid 145s come spring or low 140s, he'd be definitely of interest if they were lining up the Coral Cup with him. So I would be looking at that kind of angle for that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating day and fascinating weekend, particularly Newbury. We've got a few Irish entries that I want to get your thoughts on. There's potentially a beginner's chase now. I doubt all of these will run against each other, but you've got Classic Getaway, Journey with Me, Manila Cocooner, and What Do I Want all entered in the first beginner's chase at Gowran Park on Saturday. They're all exciting prospects over fences.
Yeah, and Vassal Vegan and Novice Hurdles and stuff. And Maiden Hurdle as well. They're going to be informative events, but just wait and see what turns up and pick the bones out from there, really.
Yeah, Sunday we've got a big race. We've got the Troy Town handicap. Anything catching your eye for that?
Frontal Assault's obviously on a very good mark, isn't
Yeah,
it?
very good mark.
In the right age, 7-year-olds have an outstanding record in it. The 142 looks eminently workable. He's an obvious player. Lifetime Ambition ran quite well, I thought.
It did, yeah.
Up to a point where he kind of blew up a little bit. If he comes on fitness-wise, he'd have an each way chance. And another of the Gordon Elliott Gigginstown battalion that might be of interest is Deafy Blue. I think he's got a big kind of race in him out of this nature. But Gordon Elliott seems to hold a hand with us, so you just wait kind of for jockey racing to see what they do. But Frontal Assault seems to be the obvious favourite. Sunday as well, just kind of a nice beginner's chase where Willie Mullins normally runs one of his star novices. He's won 7 of the last 9. Black Bolt, Cashback, Album Photo, Min, Duvan, Vautour, and Ballycasey all won it. There's only one entry this year, and it's Saint Noir.
Yeah, I see that, yeah.
This has kind of gone under the radar completely. He's 4th in a champion hurdle, rated 155. GP McManus has given the green light for him to go novice chasing, which is interesting because he's a 2 miler. So I think we're going to clash with Jonbon here. Given how uncompetitive the Arkle looks at surface, Saint Noir is 28-1 at the moment for an Arkle. Now, if he takes this up, and if he's jocked up, and if he goes off quite short and he looks like he's going to win, you'll be lucky to get half of that. Time he'll be priced in the column to like a Banbridge or something at 10s, 12, 14s. Because he's been kind of been put in his place by Honeysuckle quite regularly last season. It's not a horse to be. He doesn't strike you as an obvious chasing type. He looks quite slight and small, but Willie Mullins has said that he's schooled him and he's happy with him, and he's like good signs. And it might also be quite revealing of where he's at when the first kind of port of call of his 2 mile novices. It's not what you'd expect. It was St. Noir. It's not kind of the top novice hurdlers coming out, your Sir Gerhards or your Dysart Dynamos or your El Fabiolos.
Yeah.
It's an established horse really that's making novice appearances. Like Flame Bearer, Fernie Hall, and it's not them. It's this fella. I think that's an interesting. I think might be an indicator that Willie Mullins is a little bit more behind than even expected at this race. They normally come out late November. Already is kind of late November, and we haven't really seen much. I think that starts to change this weekend, and that'll have some effects in the markets.
I didn't know that San Ra was entered, so you've showed me that potentially that could be something I completely looked at as well. 20 to 1 seems massive, even just in the urban form. That's massive.
You wait and monitor and see if he turns up. He might get clipped into 20s, but yeah, he's trained with Willie Mullins. He's got a lot of back class. He's rated probably as equally as Jonbon was in his novice year. He's done it in open company, so I mean, all he needs to do is just translate that initial hurdling promise into fences. And if he does that, then yeah, he's going to be a lot short all of a sudden. So you might want to throw the dice now. You might want to kind of wait, but you'd like to wait and see the final declaration, just to make sure it's there, and maybe then nibble away at it and see what the rival is. Because Phil Dawes entered as well.
I see that. I see there's a couple of interesting horses entered in that race.
It's just starting to. You're seeing more kind of provisional entries and a little bit more declarations. You're learning a little bit more. So for people like us that haven't really pulled any sort of anti-post Cheltenham trigger at the moment, it's probably worth kind of still waiting and picking out something in a couple of bets come up. So yeah, it's that's why I think it's starting to show its hand a little bit now.
And there's a couple of interesting horses running in a maiden hurdle at Navan on Sunday as well. Demand Driving Duvan, who comes with a big reputation, and Grangeclair West, who seem to have went off the boil for Cheveley Park, is entered. So if they both take up the run, now Grangeclair West, I'm seeing here, his last run was 547 days ago, but he's a 6-year-old turned with 7. He obviously has some sort of potential. If he turns up here and looks okay, is he a Supreme player?
There's lots of them. There's lots of them. Spanish Harlem's one that is exciting.
Sander Clegane's entered that race. Madman's Game as well, but I doubt he'll go for that.
Be a stare so down the line, but they'll just start to come out, and you see these kind of races, you see these provision entries, you see names, and you think, well, I can see that improving, I can see that kicking on, and then all of a sudden, the market, which looks pretty dull, all of a sudden becomes a lot more. So it will start taking shape now, and if you've stuck out and patient and not pulled the trigger yet, then you'll not get long to go to actually seeing a little bit more.
We'll move into your eye catcher for the week. Now we usually we'll do kind of eye catchers if we find one like anti-post picks. There's nothing really kicking us at value at the moment, but eye catcher of the week. What was the horse that caught your eye?
I like Monbeg Park. He's trained by Sean Doyle. I thought he put away decent horses from Elliott and Mullins and Will Do and Seabank Bistro.
I've got mine just Will Do.
We've got 3 miles in time. Yeah,
yep.
It was a decent kind of race. 20 to 1 for Albert Bartlett. He's probably not going to go there. He'll probably stay and plunder. He races at home. He's a chaser down the line. He's a 3 mile point winner. I'm very interested to see what he can do stepping up and trip.
I was really disappointed with Seabank Bistro. I thought he was potentially the one that could be potentially.
He was a little bit too keen, didn't see it.
But Will Do, you can tell he could do a step up and trip over time. He's maybe not one for this year, but potentially down the line he could be an exciting 3 miler. Yeah,
no, definitely. The front two, were pretty good, and the third might come good in time. So I thought it was a decent kind of race for the nature of it.
Yeah,
punches down.
Yeah, fascinating week ahead, and obviously we've looked back in an interesting week that's potentially showed the National Hunt racing is not in a good place, but as always, we'll talk about it and we'll enjoy it because that's what we do. We just love this time of year and we love jump racing. But it's been an absolute pleasure as always, Calum. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you as well. Getting back to watching the World Cup again. So.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've got 3 more games to look forward to today. But thank you very much, everyone that's tuned in. Please follow us on social media for more consistent news regarding National Hunt Racing. And as always, subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels. New episode coming out every week. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll see you soon. Cheers.